Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Nahamane Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Sri Krishna Chaitanya
Gauranga
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya
Jaya Shri Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda
Sri
Advaita
Advaita Gadadhar
Gadadhar
Srivasadi
Srivasadi
Gaur
Gaur
Bhakta
Bhakta
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare Hare Rama Hare
Rama
Rama Rama Rama Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Krishna Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama
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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Hare
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna
Hare
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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare
Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Krishna Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare.
Krishna, Hare
Hey Prabhupada.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Prabhupada, 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 Jai
Jaya Jaya
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada,
Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai
Jaya
Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya
Jai
Prabhupada,
Jai Jai Prabhupada,
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 Prabhupada, Jai
Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya
Prabhupada,
Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada,
Prabhupada,
Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Jai
Let's all
Prabhupada.
say Namo Om
Vishnu
Vishnupadaya
Padaya,
Krishna
Krishna
Pristaya
Padaya
Bhutale Shri
Bhutale, Srimante Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane,
Namaste
Namaste
Saraswati
Saraswati
Devi
Deve,
Gauravani Pracharani
Gauravani Pacharane,
Nirvishesha
Nirvishesha
Shunyavadi
Shunyavadi
Paschatya
Paschatya
Deshataya
Desha Taline.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai!
A word about Namaste Saraswati Devi. Most people say Namaste Saraswati, like I think everybody here does. But in that grammatical construction, it's Saraswati. If you say Saraswati, you're making Bhakti Siddhanta a lady. Just a little tip. Yeah, it depends on the grammar of the phrase, right? Saras, yeah, Saraswati, and then it rhymes with Deve. So there's a tip. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now, why isn't how do I get rid of this again? Oh, yes. Wait a minute. Click, click. Is this on? Maybe it's not even on. Oh, it's on. Escape, click. Oh, you have the touch. Okay, here we are, folks. Bittersweet day. Sweet because it's Prabhupada, bitter because it's the last lesson, darn it. But you can always be in remembrance of Prabhupada. This is the final lesson of our series, and it's the final lesson of Prayojana, deepening our love for Srila Prabhupada. Now, before we look at some ways to access and nourish our personal, foundational relationship with His divine grace, let's consider how Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. By the way, the lesson's called Your Srila Prabhupada. All right. So, slide. Okay, that's good. Just that far. One more. Just one more. Okay. Oh, back. You don't want the words. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and then move that box over. There we go. Okay, yeah, that's good. All right. So one way that Prabhupada's for everyone is that he's a universal teacher. He's not simply some sectarian teacher. And Prabhupada is going to say that right now. Now, the year was 1935. Remember that famous year where Prabhupada got 3 major blessings? And the first one was Bhaktisiddhanta's was so pleased by his poem and his speech on the launch of the Bombay Gaudiya Math that he told the editor of the Harmonist, whatever he writes, print it. The year was 1935. In February, Abhay Charan Aravinda Das spoke at the Vyasa Puja celebration of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in Bombay. They chose Saraswati Thakur's Vyasa Puja as the launch date, auspicious day. Not only was the Thakur Abhay's spiritual master, he was the founder Acharya of the entire Gaudiya mission, which had ignited a renaissance of Krishna consciousness throughout the Indian subcontinent. Addressing the assembly, Abhay declared, and by the way, this speech used to be printed every year in Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja book. As an example of the perfect Vyasa Puja offering. They used to. I don't think it's done every year, especially since well, the poem is one thing, but also the speech. It's called the Universal Teacher. Addressing the assembly, Abhay declared, quote, so this is what Prabhupada actually said, "The Acharya Dev, to whom we have assembled tonight to offer our humble homage, is not the guru of a sectarian institution or one out of many differing exponents of the truth. He's not a limited teacher. On the contrary, he is the Jagad Guru, the universal teacher, the guru of all of us. The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly, while others do not obey him directly." Now, that's a very interesting thing Prabhupada said, because 36 years later, Prabhupada was in San Francisco. Yes, can you do it quietly? Yeah. Yeah, just draw. That's silent. Prabhupada was in San Francisco, and he just celebrated a wonderful Rath Yatra. In 1971, after Prabhupada had become ISKCON's founder Acharya, a reporter asked him how many followers he had. Okay, now do a few more clicks here. Boom. 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 I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. Unlimited. Okay, why don't you read, Rasakeli? Yeah, very similar to what Prabhupada said, that he's the Jagat Guru of all of us, speaking of his own founder Acharya. Very bold of Prabhupada to say that too. I have unlimited disciples. Some admit, some don't admit. That's and what did he say? The only difference is that some obey him wholeheartedly, while others do not obey him directly. So he's making the same claim actually about himself, not egotistically, but just the way Krishna arranged things. Some admit and some don't admit. Admit you are a servant of Lord Krishna, and your life will be a success. Okay. Slide. Okay. One more. Oop, good. Global preacher. Here's another way Prabhupada's for everyone. Universal teacher is the first way. Global preacher. And there is Prabhupada disgorging, deplaning from a flight in Geneva. They don't actually deplane like that anymore, out of the belly of the plane. And for some reason, one pilot explained to me once why they don't do that. It's a security thing, but I forget why it's less secure coming out of the belly of the plane. But there's Prabhupada with Satsvarup Maharaj with his staff, and my godbrother Guru Gauranga Prabhu, who pioneered the Swiss Yatra, June 74. Now, so global preacher, between 1965 and 1977, Srila Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times, establishing the Krishna consciousness movement on every major continent. Okay, 2 more clicks. Boom, boom. Okay. He also initiated thousands of followers and continues to inspire countless more to accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. At an age when most people wish to comfortably retire, Prabhupada kept up a non-stop preaching pace, tirelessly responding to his mission's demands. Prabhupada, he really wanted to just sit down and keep translating and not have to travel, but he knew that it was equally as important that he keep traveling to inspire the people who were establishing centers all over the world. He knew they needed his personal association, his physical association, just to keep them going. I liken it to, you ever see an act? I know, and there was an old TV show, and they used to regularly have this guy on, where you spin pie plates on tops of sticks. You ever see that? Yeah. And then it's many, and by the time he's spun so many, he gets back to the first one. It's almost about to fall off the stick, and then he spins it again, and he keeps doing. And so it was like that. Prabhupada was like juggling so many responsibilities just to keep the movement afloat. In the beginning, it was quite a juggling act, translating and traveling and initiating and meeting people. Yeah. As he wrote one disciple, quote, regarding your invitation that I attend the Ratha Yatra Festival in San Francisco on July 7, it is possible that I may attend depending on when I finish my European tour. He wrote that right around this time when he was touring Europe, that's Switzerland. He's going to mention that here. He says, I am due to arrive in Rome on May 23rd. Then after a week, Geneva. That's where he is then. Then Paris and possibly Stockholm. Where's Stockholm? Do you know where Stockholm is? Sweden, Germany, and England. If there is time, I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles. Oh boy, I did that once. I flew from LA to London. Oh, it was just London. It wasn't even on the continent. 14 hours nonstop on People Airways, one of these cheapo airlines. It was back in the late 70s, packed like sardines. And the person next to me, when they served the food, it was meat, and it was like, I was gagging on the smells. Anyway, it was 14 hours, just like that, packed like a sardine. No fun. They did. I remember, yeah, in the late 70s. They probably had just come in. But because the BBT was looking for a discount way to send us to India. So the first leg was LA to London. Okay. I can fly, he's telling about his itinerary. I can fly directly from Europe to Los Angeles and go to the festival. That means the San Francisco festival. But that's still a little hop up to San Fran. That's another little commuter hop. Then, as you suggest, after that, go to Australia, Ratha Yatra via Hawaii. I mean, just hearing that itinerary gives you jet lag practically. This is known as, Prabhupada says, jet age paribrajacharya. Now, Prabhupada didn't make that up. He said that because he had just read in the Hindustan Times that, Hare Krishna, he had just read in the Times, or somebody had just read it to him, that some reporter in the Hindustan Times had noticed Prabhupada's itinerary. And the reporter said, this is a jet age Swami. So Prabhupada sort of built on it. He said, this is known as jet age paribrajacharya. Traveling around by example. That was a letter to my god brother Jayatirtha. Astonishingly, jet age Prabhupada never knew jet lag, or ignored it if he did. I mean, he didn't appear to let it affect him. Instantly adapting to the time at his latest destination. And though most of his disciples were young enough to be his grandchildren, they couldn't keep up with him. That's how it was. They couldn't keep up with Prabhupada. Even when he walked on his morning walk, we would run to try to keep up with his fast walking. As Prabhupada would sometimes say, my desire is to spread Krishna consciousness everywhere at once. So because he had that intense desire, especially the people who were traveling with him, they just, they'd get somewhere after a long flight and they just want to crash. The Prabhupada, oh no, it's time for translating, or it's time for this. And then he'd look in on his entourage. They were crashed out in a room. Sometimes Prabhupada would flip on the light. You are worse than karmis, simply eating and sleeping. Karmis work hard for their sense gratification. You are useless. You would fruit of workers. That means if we're not working for Krishna, we're working for our so-called selves. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Prabhupada would have fun with us. He would just let us know that, okay, we're aspiring devotees, but sometimes he would put us in our place, everywhere at once. Okay, so the first one, I forget. Universal teacher and then global preacher. Slide. This is all by way of reminding ourselves that Prabhupada's for everybody. One more click. Matchless giver. That Srila Prabhupada founded over 100 Hare Krishna temples, schools, farms, restaurants, and other projects like the Bhaktivedanta Institute, all while writing and publishing dozens of translations and commentaries on foundational Vaishnava scriptures, is simply superhuman. How did he do it? For one thing, Prabhupada didn't sleep much. You can click some more. Yeah, there, okay. I should have had somebody read that. Okay. So for one thing, Prabhupada didn't sleep much. After going to bed at 10, this is a day in the life of Prabhupada, right? Just in bare bones in terms of sleeping. After going to bed at 10, he would usually rise at midnight or 1 and write through the wee hours. If he had time, he would nap for maybe a half hour after breakfast and a full hour after lunch. His days and nights were a seamless weave of selfless service. They weren't like our, we go to bed at night and we're out for so many hours and then we have a clear demarcation of our next days. But Prabhupada, he was sort of napping. And he did that as a sacrifice because that was the best time for him to translate. We were so needy. We were, always taking up his time when we were awake. So Prabhupada just did that to get the best quiet time for translating and annotating. Another short sleeper is the cow, to whom Prabhupada would sometimes compare himself. Guru Das recalls that in Bombay, he once told Prabhupada he was concerned not enough people would come to a program the devotees had arranged. Prabhupada replied, "No, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do." Did you ever live with cows? Yeah, they don't sleep much. He's like the cow like that. They, they kind of chew their cud. And then, every cow is different, of course. They're individuals, but they chew their cud during the day, and they're kind of like sages. They sort of meditate, and they turn that, that simple grass into the most wonderful food, milk. And they don't waste, if they're serious milk makers, they don't waste energy on frivolous things. We had there was one cow at our Gita Nagari farm. Her name was Chintamani. She was the queen of the herd. Why was she the queen of the herd? Well, she was the eldest, I think, actually. But also, she was very serious. She was, and the other cows knew it. The other cows knew that Chintamani was the queen of the herd. So whenever, it was feeding time, they were grazing on the pastures. Yeah, put it in airplane mode or whatever. Whenever they'd be grazing, but also they like grain. So when we would feed them, when they banged on a gong or cowbell, then they'd hear it and they'd all come running to the feeding trough. But even if they were ahead of Chintamani, they wouldn't touch the grain until Chintamani, she was first. There was a clear pecking order, a clear, ranking order. So Prabhupada said, I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do. Also, I personally witnessed Prabhupada's mouth. If you see his mouth up close, he has a very full mouth. It always reminded me of a cow, because cows have full mouths. And so I saw him, the first time I saw him in Detroit at the airport. We drove up from New Vrindavan. And after a rousing kirtan, and then somebody handed Prabhupada a big plate of sweets. And first Prabhupada wanted some water, so somebody had him a chalice, a goblet, and he just held it above his, mouth. And we had never seen anything like that. Somebody drinking water without touching the glass. That's the clean way to do it, right? So Prabhupada, it was like a waterfall going in his mouth. And then somebody came up with a sweet plate, and then he chose like a round sweet ball, and he just tossed it in his mouth, and there was a little crumb. And I was right here. I saw it perfectly. And then Prabhupada, just to get that crumb in his mouth, he went, just like a cow. He just took his tongue. I said, wow. I'm like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do. He means he likes to teach, preach, share. Okay. Slide. Okay. One more. Yes. Avesh, avatar. The Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita Antya-lila 7:11 states, quote, the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. Now, commenting on this verse in CC Antya 2:14, Prabhupada further identifies the one who empowers the spreader of the chanting. Okay, another click. All right, Rasakeli. One more click. Oh, okay. Okay, Rasakeli.
Empowered in China, for they are endowed with the power of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah. So what's really especially endearing about this quote to me is that Prabhupada is just objectively talking about people who are empowered by Lord Chaitanya, but he's actually describing himself without saying it. He's not saying, I'm the one, I'm the Shaktivesh avatar. No, he's just describing objectively, and he leaves it to the observer to see, who's actually got the mercy, the empowerment of Lord Chaitanya. That's Prabhupada's way. Yeah. Okay. Now, even though he was empowered and traveling all over and doing all those things, there's always going to be somebody who's going to criticize you, right? There's a T-shirt I saw once that said, avoid criticism, do nothing. And of course, if you do nothing, you'll also be criticized. But there's always, no matter what you do, someone's going to have something to say about it, right? Once an Indian Swami criticized Prabhupada's global preaching by saying that if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had wanted Krishna consciousness in the Western countries, then why didn't he go there himself To which Prabhupada replied, he left the credit for me. He loves his devotee more than himself. Beautiful answer. Unquote. Yet Prabhupada always passed on that credit to others, to his followers, to his spiritual master, and finally to Krishna himself. It is a mark of Prabhupada's absolute transparency as an Avesh avatar that he named his movement after Lord Krishna. It's called the Hare Krishna movement. Not himself. It's not the Bhaktivedanta Swami movement, as all the other movements are just known, for the guru who started it. But Prabhupada started the Hare Krishna movement. Named his movement after Lord Krishna, not himself, whom most of the world has yet to discover. That's our job as his followers, to make everybody aware of Prabhupada's glories so they can take advantage of his teachings, read his life story. Just get the benefit of knowing him and following the teachings. Okay. Click. Slide. Okay. So now we're going from he's from everyone we're going to go to the Sangha that Prabhupada started, ISKCON. Now, Srila Prabhupada is for everyone. He is certainly for everyone in ISKCON. As mentioned in Lesson 9, in 1994, ISKCON's governing body passed its first Founder Acharya resolution. Here are all of that resolution's points. This is, remember when I told that story of the snacker? Yeah. Everybody's fasting except this guy's chopping down on some maha pizza in the courtyard, where you get the maha in the courtyard at the Panchatattva temple. Well, he didn't know. He wasn't bold. He was ignorant. He's ignorant. He's complete. He's just thinking, this is Prabhupada's Vyasa. This is for Prabhupada initiates. Thinking that Prabhupada's some limited person, that he's just for the 4,780, people he initiated. So here's all the points of that resolution that the GBC passed. So Gorgadara, Prabhu, you want to read?
So 1994 GBC resolution number 35. The founder Acharya stated, A. Srila Prabhupada is the foundational Siksha Guru for all ISKCON devotees.
And the reason it's ... is because there's a lot more to each point, but for the sake of space, I just gave the gist, just so you know the gist. B.
Srila Prabhupada's instructions are the essential teachings for every ISKCON devotee.
Click. Right?
C. Srila Prabhupada's books are the embodiment of his teachings and should be accepted as the standard by all future generations of ISKCON. D. Srila Prabhupada should be worshipped daily by every ISKCON member. E. Every spiritual master is responsible to guide his disciples to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
Right. Now, more Founder Acharya resolutions since then have identified our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada as the sublime pivot around which all our relationships in his society turn. Amid our ever-increasing diversity, Srila Prabhupada remains the unity. Remember, like Giriraj Swami wrote that book, Many Moons, about wonderful devotees, and they're all revolving around Prabhupada, the sun. Okay. Okay, so now we've sort of reminded ourselves how Prabhupada's for everyone, and especially everyone in ISKCON. And now we're going to go to your Srila Prabhupada. Just stay there for a minute. Now, if you were born after Prabhupada's time, who was born after 1977? Yeah, wow. Okay, so we're the seniors. You were 2 years old. 75 you were born? Okay. Okay. So if you were born after Prabhupada's time or never knew him when he walked among us, either way, even if you were born when he was walking among us, you may never have met him. You may wonder what will happen to his society when the last Prabhupada disciple has left this world. If we understand, quote, disciple in its literal meaning as follower, that's literally what disciple means, follower, we will realize that as the Hare Krishna movement continues to expand, Prabhupada's presence will likewise expand through his divine instructions. Back. Despite our different Gurudevs, since we all share the same founder Acharya, generations will continue to follow Prabhupada into and out of this world, sharing Krishna's mercy with suffering humanity in many ways. I once gave every time this Prabhupada's disappearance day in Mayapur, in November, in Mayapur, then all the Prabhupada initiates, and it's a reduced number, speak. And so this every year it's fewer and fewer because people are, we're getting endangered species, right? I like to say endangered species. So when the microphone was passed to me, I was, let's see, what year was this? Anyway, it was after I started presenting my founder Acharya seminars. So I was really into the mood of, don't think that Prabhupada is just for Prabhupada's initiated disciples. So I took the phone and I did something. I wanted to challenge everybody because it was just a handful of us, right? Old geezers sitting on the side. And then everybody else, they had never seen Prabhupada physically. But we were all gathered there. So I took the microphone and instead of staying in one place, I stood up and I walked around with the long cord and I was going in everybody's face practically. And I was saying, now, I don't want any more of you. I don't want anybody to say to me anymore, because I was hearing this a lot in Mayapur. Sureshwara Prabhu, what's going to happen when the last Prabhupada disciple has left this planet? It's like everything's depending on, our first generation. I said, no, you guys should be imbibing everything just like we imbibed. So you should imbibe it too. So you can pass on the spirit. And it's not dependent on physical presence. I only saw Prabhupada 6 or 7 times. Most of the stories I've been telling you, I come from others. Most of my Prabhupada memories are others' memories, but it's the vibration that goes deep and can be passed on. So they were looking at me like, oh, we have to do that, like it's our responsibility. Yeah, it is. Otherwise it's going to die, right? If you don't get it that Prabhupada's also your foundational spiritual master as the founder Acharya, it's going to end. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, slide. Yeah. Here's a collage I made. Prabhupada. Okay. Slide 9. So which aspect of Srila Prabhupada inspires you the most? This collage is meant to give everybody, back. Yeah. Is meant to give everybody just a hint of the unlimited aspects of Prabhupada's personality and his mission. So which aspect of Srila Prabhupada inspires you most? Prabhupada, the world Sankirtan party leader. This is where a pointer would have come in handy. Actually, I do have it upstairs, but I should have brought it downstairs. The divine writer. Well, you can just see as I say it. Sublime chef. There's Prabhupada, the lower left. Back to the land of Krishna pioneer, upper left. Cultural conqueror. Where's? Oh. No, it's actually the lower right. He's installing Radha Gokulananda at the manor in 1973 on Janmashtami, but that's the closest I could get. Cultural conqueror, Vaishnavi empower. There's a young Malati on the beach, Pacific Ocean. Master educator. Where is he teaching? Anyway, I guess I didn't have as many pictures. Master educator, founding father, the list goes on. So we're going to be attracted to Prabhupada in different ways according to our natures. A true transcendental Renaissance man. You know, Renaissance man? Who's the archetypal Renaissance man in European? You ever study the Renaissance? Michelangelo or Da Vinci. Da Vinci is a better example because, you know, in the same person, you had the scientists and the artist. You don't usually see them in the same body, but he gave us the likes of Mona Lisa, and he gave us the likes of the helicopter, the blueprints for the helicopter. Oh, okay. There we go. So, but Prabhupada is so much more than that. He was a transcendental Renaissance man. A true transcendental Renaissance man. Prabhupada is many-sided, but to whichever side we're attracted, there are standard ways to build a personal, foundational relationship with His divine grace. Okay, you're almost done. Poor Prabhu. We almost need you. But I'll just start reading and hope he runs in. Yeah, but it's not quite. So let's see if he can come in. I'll have to pause if he doesn't make it. So the first way we can all, are you there? You know how to, okay. Okay. And while you hear Prabhupada speaking, you'll be able to see the words. And when you see the words run out, but he's still going to speak, then you go to the next slide because it continues. And when you go to the next slide, do it twice, click twice. Yeah, well, yeah, it's the same audio. Yeah. Okay, so the first way we can all, oh, here he is. Jai Rituji. The first way we could all develop our relationship with Prabhupada is by spiritual sound. The first and foremost way we can all connect with Prabhupada is by becoming keen students of his spoken and written word. Regular, attentive hearing from our founder Acharya, especially in the company of sincere and serious devotees, grounds us in the root relationship that nourishes us all. And here's a great example of that. We're going to hear an audio. So in August 1968, a new initiate in Montreal, actually was my godsister Rukmini, she was 16 years old, Prabhupada initiated her, told Prabhupada, and this is 3 days after her initiation, she was initiated on the 15th of August, and then on the 18th, there was a Bhagavatam class. And after the class, Prabhupada, as he always did, said, any questions? So she said, it was more of a statement. She said, Swamiji, when you're not here, I feel so far away from you. I feel so like lonely, you know. A new initiate told Prabhupada she felt far away from his divine grace when he wasn't there in person. Prabhupada replied, click. Yeah. Okay. Oh, all right, go back. We gotta, we have to, I have to, yeah, mute. All right, there we go. Okay. Go back. Yeah.
No, it's not full. Now it started playing.
Two conceptions, the physical conception and the vibration conception. The physical conception is temporary. The vibration conception is eternal. Just like we are enjoying or we are relishing the vibration of Krishna's teaching. So by vibration, He is present. As soon as we chant Hare Krishna or chant Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad, so he is present immediately by vibration. So we should give more stress on the sound vibration, either of Krishna or of the spiritual master, then we will feel happy and no separation.
But without saying Vani and Vapu. Oh. Okay. Prabhupada was spoon feeding the devotees, so he wasn't saying Vani and Vapu. It was 1968. He was very light on the Sanskrit. Without saying Vani and Vapu, Prabhupada gave Rukmini a very sweet answer. First he said, oh, that you shouldn't think. It's like, don't think that just because my body isn't near you, that I'm far away from you. And then it was sweet how first he started talking about Krishna. And that's something we could all relate to because Prabhupada was just coming out that year with the Bhagavad Gita. And so Prabhupada's saying, as soon as we open the Gita, there's Krishna. He had disappeared 5,000 years before, but as soon as you read a shlok or read the commentary by Prabhupada, then you're in touch. There's the Guru right there, and there's Krishna right there. So Prabhupada said that's if you really try to understand that and feel it, then we'll feel happy and no separation. Okay. Separated from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for decades, Prabhupada would nonetheless say he always felt his spiritual master right by his side. How? By absolute absorption in hearing and chanting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's teachings. In the same way, in the company of sincere and serious devotees, absorbed in studying and presenting Prabhupada's teachings, we will also feel Prabhupada's presence in our lives. I mean, every time I present this seminar series, I feel Prabhupada's presence more just because I'm focused on this, even though I've taught it before. And then also your absorption too wakes me up. Yeah, we're all feeling it. It's great. Okay, so slide. Two exemplars. That means great examples. There on the left is my late godbrother Jayananda Prabhu walking with Prabhupada in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. And there on the right is my late god sister Jamuna Devi, also walking with Prabhupada in Golden Gate Park. So in this connection, in the connection of being absorbed in hearing about Prabhupada, two exemplary devotees from my generation come to mind. Jayananda Prabhu and Jamuna Devi. In 1967, this is 1967, this is very early in the movement. It's the beginning of the San Francisco Yatra. There's Jayananda. He's still, Prabhupada, or Jayananda, he used to support the temple by driving a taxi. He wasn't, living in the temple with the devotees. He was the only person bringing in income. In 1967, Jamuna and Jayananda were among the first to join Srila Prabhupada's movement in San Francisco. Deeply devoted to Prabhupada from the start, they were also as different as night and day. I had the opportunity to know them both. Jamuna I knew better than Jayananda, but they were so different. That's them in 67, but I met Jayananda first in 73 and then toward the end of his life in 77. And I didn't meet Jamuna until 93. Yeah. To meet Jamuna was to meet a priestess of devotion, expressed most wonderfully through her cooking, singing, and deity worship. Prabhupada, the cultural conqueror, came through Jamuna. She was very she was, what's the word? She was like an aesthete, an appreciator of fine music and philosophy and cooking. She was a great cook. She had an award-winning. Her cookbook won the best cookbook of the world of the year award in 1987 for the whole world. Yeah, yeah, it was quite a tour de force. Quite a feat. So Jamuna was, like that, very refined. Jayananda was strong as an ox and humble as grass. A mechanical engineer by training, Jayananda was a tireless worker who was perhaps most beloved for building huge chariots for ISKCON's annual Rath Yatra parades. Yeah. Prabhupada stunned us after Jayananda passed away. He said, so you can put a picture of Jayananda on the Rath Yatra cart whenever you have Rath Yatra. So that's why you may see it if people don't have pictures of Jayananda, they should know that that's what Prabhupada wanted. Of course, then you have a big picture of Prabhupada because he's not with us physically, but then you see, should be there too, Jayananda. Different as they were, Jamuna and Jayananda both had a deep love for hearing from Srila Prabhupada. By developing a similar love and a deep dedication to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, one or more aspects of our beloved founder Acharya will also shine through us. So it's not just for Jayananda and Jamuna. We all have that opportunity to get absorbed. And naturally, we're going to get absorbed in different ways, in different aspects of Prabhupada. So as we develop our nature, our spirit, as Prabhupada said in an earlier lesson, that aspect of Prabhupada will shine through us. And when then we share that with people, then we'll be giving them Prabhupada because we'll be transparent to Prabhupada in that aspect. Like Prabhupada, we saw he was cooking on the stove. So Mataji has a special attraction to cooking for Krishna. So yeah, you're going to give people Prabhupada's cooking shakti, cooking aspect. And we all have something to give, and the more we all give together, then as people become familiar or acquainted with different devotees, they're going to get acquainted with all different aspects of Prabhupada. And in the well-rounded sangha of serious and sincere devotees, manifesting different aspects of Prabhupada, they get the full measure of Prabhupada's mercy. Okay, so the first way we can all develop that relationship with Prabhupada is through hearing. That's where it all begins and never ends. The next is slide. Oop. Yeah, thank you. No, it's all right. Just because it's just me moving around and moving this, and no matter what you do, I'm just going to be fiddling with it. You just got to remind me. That's good. Okay, so the next way that everybody can do is by serving his mission. That's another way to develop a relationship with Prabhupada. Since some dubious devotional groups prematurely focus on seeing Krishna face to face, like I told you about those grotesque guys pretending to be gopis, right? Prabhupada admonished his followers that the best way to see Krishna is to serve his mission under the guidance of his pure devotee, the spiritual master. Raj, you want to read that quote?
When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is conform to seeing the supreme personality of Godhead.
Quite a statement. When we become serious to serve the mission, that is as good as seeing God face to face. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would say, don't try to see God. You work in such a way that God will see you. And Prabhupada gave the example, just take it for what it's worth, but it's an example. Say you're working in Mr. Ford's factory, on the car assembly line making cars. So you don't see Henry Ford, or of course now he's gone, but you don't see, say the chairman of the board or whatever at Ford Motor Company. You're just a rank and file worker. But if your service is exemplary, the day may come, Prabhupada said, when Mr. Ford will come down to the line and he'll say, "You are such a good worker. Here, have a gold watch." Okay, take the example, just for what it's worth. But in other words, the blessings descend. Prabhupada really praised devotees who were, quote, silent workers, not advertising themselves, not bragging, not putting themselves forth as something special. Or as Prabhupada said to Jamuna, Guru Maharaj said, those who wanted to be seen with him were like mosquitoes, simply sucking blood, simply taking, right? Yeah, I mean, who do we think we're kidding, right? Krishna's infinitely great. We're just tiny. We're infinitesimal. So there's nothing we can really impress Krishna with, except we can give him what we're withholding, our love. And then we become dear to him. Oops, there we go again. Don't try to see God. You work in such a way that God will see you, unquote. And when that work is done cooperatively in Srila Prabhupada's mission, synergizing the efforts of different generations, Krishna sees and blesses us manyfold. He's happy when we cooperate and give up our false pride. Okay. So now the next slide is an interesting sort of pause in the action. Slide. Boom. Okay. That's it. All right. Hari Priya, do you know who that is? Or what that is? What kind of species that is? I'll give you a hint. It's not a monkey. There's somebody actually who's better at jumping than monkeys. And I'll give you a hint. This animal is native, not to India. He's native to Madagascar. You ever heard of that place? It's off the east coast of Africa. No, that's a good guess, though. And here's another hint. The name of this animal rhymes with a bone in your leg. What's this bone? That's the thigh, but what's the bone inside called? The femur.
Probably.
So what rhymes with femur? Lemur. That was a quiz. So I put him there because he's a great jumper, but Prabhupada doesn't want us to jump over our gurus or over him. And here's what I mean by that. See, with this whole seminar series is focusing on Prabhupada, how we all have this direct, primary, foundational relationship with Prabhupada. So someone could say, well, wait a minute, let's pause here. Aren't we, there's only a handful of you guys left. Are we jumping over our gurus if we try to go direct to Prabhupada? So let's look at that. No jumping over. So one more click. Here's an audio. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Yeah. I forgot this is an audio too. All right. Mute.
You're muted, Yadav? Yeah.
You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some book, you cannot understand unless.
Yeah, that's you're right. I'm sorry. I needed to set this up a little better. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I gotta go back and take that.
So we'll have to unpause.
Yes. Okay, all right. So now I can speak? Okay. All right, sorry, folks. We're going to do take two in a minute, but first I have to set up the audio by saying, in the early 1970s, as more Western devotees began to visit India, some became fascinated by the books in English of our Gaudiya predecessors, especially Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda. You know, some of the early devotees who went with Prabhupada, they noticed that there were these books in English written by Bhaktivinoda, Bhaktisiddhanta, and they wanted to read them. So they asked Prabhupada if they could read their writings. Prabhupada wasn't pleased. So let's go to the audio again. Back. Please go back. Yeah, but go back. Okay.
You cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read some book, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. This is called for. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, I will say, neglecting the next order, immediate next order.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So hearing Prabhupada say that, because he was saying that in 1973 to his disciples in Los Angeles, he happened to be in LA. So you might wonder, well, but aren't we jumping over to go to Prabhupada's, followers today? But here's the point. In ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our initiating and instructing spiritual masters is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So if no jumping over means no neglecting one's immediate next acharya, you see that phrase? Next acharya. How much more does that mean no neglecting Srila Prabhupada, our founder acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings? In other words, Prabhupada isn't just our upline in the parampara, our predecessor, one of the many, but he's the foundation of this whole branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So before we even establish relationships with Shiksha and Diksha gurus, we need to establish a foundational relationship with the founder acharya. So he's not like the other gurus. He's main, primary, foundational. And the more deeply our spiritual masters connect us with Srila Prabhupada, the more responsibility we have to pass on his unique legacy to others. Okay, so here's where we get into what I told those devotees. Don't think it's just, the responsibility of Prabhupada initiates to pass on Prabhupada. No, it's everybody's responsibility. So let's go to the next slide. Boom, okay. Not yet, one more click soon, not yet. Yeah. When Srila Prabhupada sees we're sincerely following him, he blesses us with the realization to pass on his teachings in ways both faithful and fitting. All right, now Prabhupada explains what that means in the quote. So click. Let's see, is that in the way? Yeah, there you go. Who's going to read now? How about Rituji?
You must realize the subject matter so nicely that you can present the matter for them.
For the click. present the matter for the, yeah. Pause, and that's Prabhupada's emphasis. He put that in italics in the Bhagavatam. Go ahead. We only get realization when we please Guru and Krishna. It's not simply a matter of book learning, of being an academic or an intellectual, but we actually follow the teachings. This is called realization. And it requires, that's why I say imbibe and impart. We need to be faithful yet creative too on how to do that, because the time, place, and circumstances and the people that we encounter, they're always changing. So how to connect with people, how to bring people closer to Krishna, it depends on who you're speaking to and the circumstances. And so that's only possible to do that when you're blessed with realization of how to do it. It's like Prabhupada would tell us, if I have any credit, it's that I didn't change anything. But he changed so many things. But what did he change? He changed details. He never changed principles. So, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was preaching, he was preaching in a very high intellectual, philosophical way. That was what was required for that time in the 1930s, and trying to impress the English-speaking intellectuals. And then when Prabhupada came, he was speaking to his first serious listeners in New York City in the Lower East Side by talking about dovetailing one's individual consciousness with a supreme consciousness. It was a very cosmic kind of presentation, and stay high forever. And he was talking to psychedelic people who were taking psychoactive drugs. So he knew just how to, preach to people, share, teach people according to the time, the place, the circumstance. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it. So don't mess with the main principles and spirit. Yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization. And Prabhupada, he was preaching 50, 60 years ago. So now we have in 2022, we're facing a whole different, mindset all over the world. Times have changed, but sincere devotees will imbibe Prabhupada's teachings and know how to reach the ever-shifting kaleidoscope of time, place, and circumstances. They'll know how to phrase it, what kind of. It's like here's another thing Prabhupada did. Did anybody ever read Easy Journey to Other Planets? That's the first book I read. It's a little book that Prabhupada, before he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, he wrote Easy Journey. Do you have that book? Yeah. So that book was triggered by Sputnik. Remember Sputnik? Oh, you weren't alive. 1957, the Russians put up this, artificial satellite, and it scared the hell out of us because we thought, oh no, the Russians are going to shoot missiles down on us from outer space. It started the so-called space race. So in the late 50s, when Prabhupada started writing Easy Journey, he knew from his own keeping up on the news and writing back to Godhead that all eyes were on Russian scientists. They were considered, the most advanced now. They put something up in space and we're behind them. And so Easy Journey was it was a response to the Russians saying they've discovered antimatter. Today they talk about dark matter. They're always changing their terms. But so Prabhupada, he took the jargon of the Russian scientists and he started presenting the real antimatter was, he called it the anti-material particle. He's talking about the soul. He's taking Bhagavad Gita, and instead of saying the soul or the Jivatma, he's saying the anti-material particle. which comes from the anti-material world. So the whole easy journey is, and he's talking about we can go to the anti-material world if we have an anti-material vehicle. So all of easy journey is Prabhupada presenting Bhagavad Gita in ways appealing to the latest scientific jargon on matter and antimatter. So it's a good example of preaching, of seizing the moment and preaching according to the time, the place, and the circumstance. And it fascinated me. So this is called realization. To imbibe and impart Prabhupada's legacy is to become gurus in our own right, not to imitate or replace our founder Acharya, but to follow in his footsteps. Quote, because people are in darkness, we require many millions of gurus to enlighten them. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, he said that, quote, every one of you become guru. We had that quote before. Amaragyai Guru Hanya. And now we end the lesson in the whole series by taking a deep dive into the benefits, plural, of what you get, of what we get. What's the payoff here? What are the benefits of deeply understanding Srila Prabhupada's position? You can hold the for now, but pretty soon. So in his GBC authorized booklet, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Anybody read that? Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Have you seen this booklet? It was published in 2014. And I was part of the committee that was working on it. But Ravindra Sarup Prabhu, our American philosopher and writer par excellence, he actually was the writer. He would, he was writing different drafts, and then we'd suggest changes and fine tuning. And finally, in 2014, he got his work to the point where the GBC was willing to publish it. So it came out in 2014, and it's really a great. I have it on PDF too, if you want it. I can share it with you. And the whole thing is about Prabhupada's position as founder Acharya and how we're all meant to just take him in, and just like, as Ravindra says, just like a baby takes in his mother's milk. So we have to imbibe Prabhupada's life teachings, mood, and mission like that. So it's just part of us, Yeah, it was a great analogy. Okay. Ravindra Sarup Prabhu concludes. So he concluded that booklet. It's about 130, 40 pages. By listing the benefits of deeply understanding Prabhupada's unique transcendental position, especially for all who serve his movement. So let's look at these. It's like bullet points. Click. Yeah, there's one. That's benefits, and then one more. Boom. Or how do we go around the room? About Mataji, can you read that? Oh, okay. All right. Who hasn't read? Oh, okay. Well, you read then, Hari Priya. Yeah, sounds like you're getting the mercy there. You can at least read that. That's good. All right. Bullet point 2, click. Mataji. Active. Integrity. Yeah. Yeah, he is the Prabhupada is the unity amidst all our diversity. And we need both things. We need strong guru disciple relationships, like you folks have with Gopal Krishna Maharaj. And and people have with their gurus. and we need strengthening, and we need to be very appreciative of the guidance of Prabhupada's authority structure. He set up an authority structure. It's the governing body, and then you have regional secretaries. Now they have different titles: zonal supervisors, global duty officers, and they have temple presidents. And so we need to be really feeling close to Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters, but we also need to acknowledge and cooperate with the authority structure he gave us, because we need both. It's external. We need to be organized, like Prabhupada said to Giriraj Maharaj. So how will this movement go on after I leave? And then Prabhupada said, finally, organization and intelligence. Yeah. Okay, some more bullet points. Click. Oop. All right, Raj.
By taking full shelter of Srila Prabhupada as Shiksha Guru in his Vani manifestation, all teachers in ISKCON on various levels of advancement will be able to authentically convey Srila Prabhupada's real teaching, thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all.
Yeah, full shelter. Because if we're not all absorbed in Srila Prabhupada, it's very easy, and this has happened in the history of our movement, for people to sort of just go off track and start, emphasizing things that Prabhupada didn't emphasize, and start getting into just different. It ends up. It's like the example is, if something is taking off, and it's off by a little bit, it might seem like a little bit in the beginning, but then that little bit becomes a lot. It veers off. It's like a mathematical thing, right? So if we're not, really taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada, his life, his teachings, his mood and mission, then very easily we get diverted into things that Prabhupada didn't think were important. And we miss out on his full mercy. Thus giving proper guidance, shelter, and protection to all. That doesn't mean that Prabhupada's the only teacher. We're not like born-again Krishnas, that Prabhupada's the way, the light, the truth. No one cometh unto Krishna except by Srila Prabhupada. Put your hands on the TV set and heal. That's making fun of TV evangelists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're not like that. But we do say that what Prabhupada manifested, in this world as a whole international society, the whole spiritual infrastructure that Prabhupada gave us, and so much teaching and guidance and example. I mean, why not take advantage of that? Because no one even comes close. There was the one who had the most physical association with Prabhupada when he was preaching was his Sanskrit editor, whose name was, do you know? Pradyumna. Prabhupada called him Panditji. So after Prabhupada left this world, ISKCON went through some hard times, and Pradyumna was very quick to point out things that we were doing that if we persisted was going to really throw the movement for a loop. And everything he said came true, because the leaders at the time wouldn't listen to him because they didn't know what it meant to follow Prabhupada. They were thinking they had to imitate Prabhupada, sort of be, because Prabhupada did say, do as I do, but they couldn't distinguish following from imitating. So as I said, they began to accept worship on the level of a founder acharya, and they were, abusing, they didn't have the right attitude. They were thinking, we're the masters, not the servant. It was, oh, yes. He actually spends a lot of time at the Bhakti Center in New York. I think he's an adjunct professor of Sanskrit at Rutgers. the State University of New Jersey. Yeah, he's a great guy. Very learned and very down to earth. So in 79, in 77, Prabhupada passed. In 78, the people started initiating, but in 79, the invitation was setting in. And Prajumya wrote a letter of concern to the GBC, and he gave it to Satsrup Maharaj to share with all the GBC. But it just sort of fell on deaf ears because they thought he was, envious of the people who were gurus now or something. But he was trying to tell them, look, don't do this. Don't accept worship on that level. And so sure enough, everything he said would happen. The fall downs of gurus and the violence and the offenses and the trampled creepers and said the breakup of we lost whole yatras when gurus were imitating Prabhupada and then they inevitably fell. They got the reaction. They would take whole countries with them because people were following them. They weren't following Prabhupada. So it was horrendous. And finally, in 1999, 20 years after Prajumya wrote that letter, the GBC had introspected enough. By then they had passed that Founder Acharya resolution in 94. And they wrote a letter of apology for saying, yes, Prajumya Prabhu was right. And we're supposed to be the ultimate managing authority of ISKCON. This is what Prabhupada mandated for us, but we blew it. So it was nice. Yeah. Could have gone further, but it was okay. It was a good start. It was a good healing statement. So generation after generation, yes, by taking full shelter. Yeah, full shelter. Otherwise, it's so easy to get distracted. Okay. So click. Gurgadhar Prabhu.
ISKCON's teachings will remain consistent over space and time.
Yeah, consistent. It's going to be the same message for thousands of years. If ISKCON has that opportunity, it's predicted in Shastra, and Prabhupada's a very confidential servant of Lord Chaitanya. So the teachings remain consistent if we stay focused on the essence of what Prabhupada taught. The externals might look very different. In fact, my godbrother Kuladri Prabhu, who used to be the president in New Vrindavan, he spent a lot of time with Prabhupada in October 77, and Prabhupada's telling him about one thing that sticks in my mind that Prabhupada said to Kuladri, because Kuladri was saying, Prabhupada, as time passes, after you depart, as time passes, what will ISKCON be like? And Prabhupada said one thing. He said, it will look like nothing that it looks like today. And for one thing, he was right, just structurally, because everything was in temples in those days. And now, as we see, here it is 50 years later, and everything's outside. That's where it's happening outside the temples. The temples are still the core, the deity worship and the Brahminical activities and the preaching. But it's a congregational movement. It's not a temple-centric movement. It's a congregation-based movement. Yeah, consistent over space and time. So because space and time, like Krishna said to Arjuna, Sakale, Neya, Mahata, or in time, the teachings, how does it go? Nastak Parantapa. But of course, with time, the succession was broken. Evang Parampara. This supreme science was thus received through the disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. So it was broken. Kali Yuga was coming in. So Krishna at the beginning of the Yuga had to revive it through speaking it to Arjuna. And then Prabhupada's coming in an unbroken chain masters. We're going back to Krishna's time. And we have an opportunity to continue that special mercy that Prabhupada brought in the line of Lord Chaitanya. And the teachings have to be consistent, although the application of the teachings can look really different, depending on where you are. So let's do another click. Yeah. Okay, I'll read this. Prabhupada's realized knowledge, endowing him with a specific potency to spread Krishna consciousness, will not only be preserved, but also developed. Prabhupada told us, so at least after I leave, if you can't expand, if you can't increase, at least maintain it. But to even maintain it, you've got to really be, serious and sincere. Otherwise, the tendency of the material world is to break everything up. It's like if you're taking off in a rocket, you're fighting gravity, right? And until you get out of the Earth's gravity, you're in trouble. Or just like they say, when you're in an airplane, the most dangerous times are takeoff and landing. Because when you're taking off, it's like so many things can go wrong, and it's really trying to reach that, that in aerodynamics when you finally lift off, when you finally get up in the air. So Prabhupada told us, at least maintain it. But if we're really, staying with Prabhupada, the spirit of Prabhupada's teachings, there's so many, it can increase, because that's the nature. Spiritual energy increases. Material energy decreases everything. Everything breaks up over time. But spiritual potency increases. Will not only be preserved, but also developed. Yeah. Okay, so and this next one is very closely related to that. Click. That's Kelly? Yeah, so many things that Prabhupada wrote and spoke about, they're not manifest yet. I mean, just for the biggest example in our little seminar series was Varnashram. This whole development of eco-villages, and Prabhupada wrote and spoke about that a lot, but we haven't manifested yet. We haven't, we're not mature enough to really manifest those. Just little bits, like in the, anybody ever been to Hungary? Yeah, Shivaram's Krishna Valley. Yeah, I've been there. It's very nice. It's a very good example of a rural community that's Krishna conscious, they're producing most of what they consume. Krishna Valley, Krishna Druv, or something, I forget in Hungarian how it goes. New Vrajadam. Yeah, that's another phrase. Yeah, New Vrajadam. And in Radhadesh, anybody been to Belgium? Yeah, Radhadesh is a nice community where they have a Goshala, they have a Bhaktivedanta college. They have the beginning aspects of a village. And where else? Well, you go to third world countries where, people aren't as conditioned as we are to modern amenities. And like Bhakti Raghava Maharaj, you know him? Yeah. He's done a lot in India and in Indonesia. Where it's not so modernized. He has developed rural communities, cow protection, education. So, there's a lot of things that Prabhupada wrote and spoke about, but that we haven't manifest yet. But they're like gems waiting to be mined, and All right. And then finally, click. All right, this is a big one. Who's going to read this? All right, Prabhu.
Srila Prabhupada's eyes always remain the lens through which we all future generations see our predecessor acharyas.
Yeah. Yeah, we take inspiration from our previous acharyas, but we see them all teachers and teachings through our founder acharya's eyes. And that's very important, because if we start emphasizing another acharya, then we can do that if we want, but then we step outside Prabhupada's Sangha. We're in another Sangha. We're in the so-and-so Maharaj Sangha. And that's okay, you can do that. But Prabhupada, again, what Prabhupada manifested was just unbelievable. He had so much, surrender and realization and empowerment. And so why not follow Srila Prabhupada? So all those benefits naturally accrue to devotees who realize their core identity as Prabhupada Anugas. What does that mean? Prabhupada followers. Yeah. Inspired by, quote, our Prabhupads. We all have that's what the lesson was called, our Srila Prabhupada. We will continue to cooperate, even when we disagree, to bring the Lord's mercy to everyone. So that's natural. We're all individuals, so we're all going to have different levels of understanding of Prabhupada, different perspectives. But if we really are sensitive to his requests, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate. To love is to cooperate. If we do cooperate, then even when we disagree, we'll respect each other. And we'll still be able to work together in his movement. Inspired by our Prabhupads, we will continue to cooperate, even when we disagree, to bring the Lord's mercy to everyone. I can't imagine a better way to please Srila Prabhupada, our beloved founder Acharya. And that's the end. And then we invite questions and comments. So is anybody online that's... Okay, Prabhus, anybody out there online would like to make a comment or ask a question? Are they there? Okay. Okay, then we will defer to the studio audience, the live audience. Sure. The lemur, the femur. Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't jump to the superior.
Yeah, so that's, it's kind of a paradox. Let me go back there. Go back to slide 14. Oops. Okay. Okay, good, because we're not hearing the audio. We're just seeing what Prabhupada said. So, so the historical context is Prabhupada's giving a Bhagavatam lecture to the devotees in LA on the 8th of December, 1973. And Prabhupada's choosing to say to the devotees there that, people have been asking him, is it okay to read Bhaktivinoda's books, Bhaktisiddhanta's, the books of Prabhupada's, predecessors, seniors, people senior to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's spiritual master, and then the father of Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktivinoda. So then we see Prabhupada saying, as you heard him say, you cannot imagine what my spiritual master said. Or even if you read their books, if you read some books, you cannot understand unless you understand it from me. We've got to see those great masters of the past through Prabhupada's eyes. And he does present them in his purports. This is called parampara system. Parampara means one after another. You cannot jump over to the superior guru, neglecting the next acharya, immediate next acharya. So my whole point in contextualizing that comment is that when we hear Prabhupada say this, we have to remember that Prabhupada's speaking not just as now a previous guru, because he's gone physically from our sight. We have to remember that Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. He's the foundational spiritual master of ISKCON. So I always say, whenever somebody comes into our Sangha, if we're on the ball, if we know what we're doing, we'll immediately introduce them to Srila Prabhupada. And that's not jumping over, that's just common sense, that you got to get to know the person who's the foundational spiritual master of everybody, of all generations in this ISKCON branch. So just remember that Prabhupada, how do I say it here? In ISKCON's multiple guru culture today, we've come to realize that a prime duty of our initiating and instructing spiritual masters is to deepen, enhance, and enrich our foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. If, quote, no jumping over means no neglecting one's immediate next Acharya, as Prabhupada said, how much more does that mean no neglecting Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya, from whom we derive our core identity and through whom we see all teachers and teachings. And the more deeply our spiritual masters connect us with Srila Prabhupada, okay, that's another point. I'm going to tell you a story now. I'm glad you asked this because I saved this story for the right moment. And okay. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. This is my favorite story that I tell in this seminar series, but I never tell it unless the right moment comes and you ask the right question about what does it mean, next Acharya, and it seems contradictory that, what you're saying and to what Prabhupada said. Okay, so here's the story. I think this story will bring the point home very clearly. I have a colleague, and I'm going to keep her anonymous at her request because she doesn't want to be, she's a private person, and she lets me tell this story as long as I don't reveal her identity, so people don't hound her. They might hear it online or hear it on Facebook and then say, "Oh, you're the." She doesn't want to be in the limelight. Anyway, so I have a colleague in ISKCON education, and this lady, her story is very instructive to illustrate this point. Okay, so she's a colleague, but she's younger than me. She's from the second generation. So when she's her background is India, but she's Western educated. So she first came in contact with Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita in 1987. She was in India, and somehow she picked up, or I think she might have got it from an ISKCON devotee, Bhagavad Gita as it is. And she was already a teacher. She was teaching, I don't know what she was teaching, I forget, but she was a teacher and a seeker, and she read Prabhupada's Gita as it is. And she was thrilled, as I was thrilled, wow, this is the absolute Atintya Beta Beta Tattva. God and his energies are one and different. And so immediately, I think she went to Calcutta. She was in India visiting her folks or something. And she went to Calcutta because in the back of the book, it gave a list of centers. And so she saw that there's one, right in Calcutta, 3 Albert Road in Calcutta. So she went there to ask how she could meet the teacher, the author of the book. And then she was so sad to find that the author had passed away 10 years earlier in 1977. But she was still so inspired by Prabhupada's Gita that she saw there was a whole movement, that grew up around his teachings. So she wanted to be part of that. So she did. She started coming to the temple and associating, doing service, and anyway, a godbrother of mine from America was visiting India. He would go to India every year, and he met her. And long story short, they ended up getting married. And he's from America. And so, he took her to America. And then, over time they became, married, and she became a naturalized citizen. And she's reading Prabhupada's books. She's a teacher, so she's really studious and she's smart, and she's, reading the books. And she knows that right in the books she's reading, now she's not only Gita, she was reading Nectar Devotion, and of course Bhagavatam and Isopanishad. And so she's reading in Prabhupada's books that if you want, you have to take a spiritual master. It says right in the books. But she's already been reading Prabhupada's books. So she's feeling that Prabhupada is her spiritual master, right? Okay, but Prabhupada, her spiritual master, as she's thinking, and she's right, is telling her, you need to take initiation. It says right in the books, in Nectar of Devotion, that you've got to take shelter of somebody, you got to take initiation. So, but this is now 1991. And she came into ISKCON in 87, and you folks weren't in ISKCON then, but that was the dark night of our soul. That was when, well, the worst part was the early and mid 80s, when there was a lot of imitation and fall down and reaction. And so the movement didn't fall apart, but it almost did. But we all kind of rallied around Prabhupada's structure, the GBC, and we started to recover. But the imitation was still going on. Not as much, but it was still there. So the 80s were the most intense, and the 90s were also intense in terms of reaction and fall downs and imitation and all this stuff. And so now she's part of the movement, and she's reading Prabhupada's books, and she's observing this. She's observing that, what's going on in the organization that she joined, right? So now in 91, she writes somebody who she's inspired by, who's a leader in the movement. And she says, oh, I'm reading something you wrote, and I'm hearing you speak, and I'm really inspired. And Prabhupada says that, I'm not initiated, but I know I have to take an initiation. So could we explore a guru-disciple relationship? And so the person writes back and said, well, I'm not so much initiating anymore. I kind of, I just want to, I'm just sort of, I write a lot and I teach, and I just, my health isn't good. So, and you're already married to a Prabhupada disciple, so why don't you just take shelter of your husband? For now, don't think that and you've got Prabhupada's book, so, just, and she's disappointed, but she kind of appreciates his honesty and frankness and his candor. And she said, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I know Prabhupada's my spiritual master. She didn't have the vocabulary for it like we do now, foundational guru and foundational shiksha guru and all this stuff. It was before the first founder Acharya resolution. So she did that. So she's reading, and she's becoming advanced, but she's not initiated. The formality hasn't happened yet. And so the 90s go on, and there's more convulsions and crises and, dramas and stuff happen. And she's kind of glad that, I don't know if I want to be initiated. Maybe I'll be disappointed. Maybe I'll be betrayed, right? And then the 90s kind of wane on, and you remember what happened at the end of the 90s in terms of Y2K? Exactly. So there was a lot of people who bought into Y2K, that as soon as 2000 would happen, that the world was going to somehow go up in a puff of cyber smoke, and the world as we knew it was not going to be the same, right? Anyway, Y2K came and went, and we were still here, right? So this lady says to her husband, Prabhuji, this is driving me crazy. I know Prabhupada's my spiritual master, but I'm really, and he wants me to take initiation, but I'm really reluctant, to do this. But it's kind of driving me nuts because it's like, I'm thinking one way, but Prabhupada's saying another thing. And then it's like this tension is building up in her. It's driving her crazy. So I don't know what to do. So he's trying to help. He's like a good husband. He's trying to help his wife. And then a couple of years later, I think it was 2003, yeah. They're at a certain place in America, and they're attending this festival in America. And then the lady hears a certain person speak, another person, another leader speak. And she's inspired. And she starts thinking, maybe now, So she says to her husband, Prabhu, I gotta speak to Maharaj. I gotta resolve this, this dilemma. This is killing me. So can you ask the organizer of the festival how can I have some time with him? So the husband approaches the organizer and says, my wife really would love to speak to Sannyas Maharaj. Can you arrange a darshan? For this? And so the festival organizer says, well, Maharaj has been traveling and he's really tired and he's not feeling well and everybody's always after him and, so I'll tell you what, I'll give you 20 minutes with Maharaj, right? To solve all her problems of her life in 20 minutes. Good luck. So anyway, by Krishna's mercy, what happened was they did have a meeting sometime, I think it was later on in the festival or something, when Maharaj was a little recovered. He had just gotten, he was jet lagged and not feeling well. So the lady says, she just pours out her dilemma, what I just explained to you. I know I'm supposed to be initiated. 16 years now since she's read Prabhupada's Gita. And she's really done a lot of service. She's giving classes and she's not initiated. So, and then she says to Maharaj, Maharaj, Prabhupada wants me to take initiation. I can't even imagine offering incense or food to anybody else but Prabhupada. Anything. He's my spiritual master. I know it. But Prabhupada says I have to take initiation from a bona fide spiritual master. So what to do? What do I do? And so Maharaj is very wise and very compassionate. So he said, And then he told her, he did a very nice thing. Instead of just giving her a pat answer, well, it says he started revealing how he came to Krishna consciousness and how it took him a while to surrender, to a spiritual master. And then how he finally met Prabhupada, because he met so many gurus. And then he said to her something really that just lit up everything. He said, because she said, am I envious? That I'm not willing to just, surrender to anybody he said, no, you're not envious. You're intelligent. And that's when he told her the story of his seeking and his finding Prabhupada finally. And then he said the magic words. He said, now what if you took initiation from someone who wouldn't get in between you and Prabhupada, who wouldn't block your relationship with Prabhupada, who would enrich, enhance, and deepen your relationship with Srila Prabhupada? What about that? So she said, oh, I never heard that before. And one of the poor ladies having trouble because ISKCON still hadn't gotten it right of everybody's foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Even though the first founder Acharya resolution had been passed, there was still a lot of blocking going on. Being the transparent via media to Prabhupada wasn't still happening enough. So she said, I never heard that, because she thought that if she took initiation from somebody else, then that she would belong to somebody else, right? And she wouldn't have Prabhupada as her core identity and her foundational relationship. Oh, I never heard that. That's really interesting. And then so he said, what do you think of that? So she said, I like that. So that's kind of how the meeting ended. And then she started writing the Maharaj. And they started developing a relationship where he was actually doing that. He was introducing her to so many aspects of Prabhupada that she never even knew or felt. So in 2011, when I got the inspiration to start researching a seminar series on Prabhupada to help ISKCON, be more founder Acharya centered than Diksha Guru centered, I knew her story. She had told me her story before because we were friends. So I wrote her. I said, Mataji, your story would really help me in this seminar. Could I use your story? And could you just write it down, just to make sure I got it all right, because she told me personally before. And then she wrote the story down. And then at the end of the story, she said something really great. Now, this is 2011, so she was initiated in 2004. So she's been initiated for 7 years by the time she, confirmed the story. She said, and Sureshwar, I am so happy to tell you that not only has Maharaj kept his promise to enrich, enhance, and deepen my relationship with Srila Prabhupada, but now he has also taken his place at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada in my heart. And I was thrilled. I said, yes, that's how the parampara works in ISKCON. Prabhupada is the main, and all the gurus, they sit at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, the master at whose feet all masters sit. You have a bona fide spiritual master. Congratulations. So that's the way it works. And the more we do that, the more ISKCON will survive, thrive, the ravages of time, expand, increase, do all those benefits that we saw, That's the mood. But we're still, let me tell you, we're still struggling to do that. It's not done enough. Yeah. So, yes.
Two things, Prabhu. One thing is sometimes people feel definitely that Madhavi was intelligent enough.
Yeah.
So that she approached. But then there are some organizations or some groups that they think just by their own reading the books, they don't need guru, they can just directly read.
But what does it say in the books? What books are you talking about, first of all?
Sometimes they seek,
Well, that's something else. I mean,
itself as a guru.
yeah, it's like the Protestant Reformation. You know what the Protestant Reformation was all about? Because there were so many popes who were abusing their position and power. Then Martin Luther posted 95 theses on the Vatican. It was like Christian Ritvikism. We don't need a transparent VM. We're going to go directly to God. So, but God says, he says, no, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. So we need a transparent via media to show that we were willing to be servant of the servant. Now, that doesn't mean we're fools. We don't accept anybody as spiritual master. The key is transparent. It all rests on transparency. As soon as our ego is in there, then we can't act as gurus, because then it's all about us.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada.
Right? So it's no small thing to be a transparent via medium to the parampara and all the way back to Krishna. Yeah. So, okay.
Second thing is the Varnashram system. This Varnashram system that Prabhupada was trying to.
Yes.
Definitely, like since Prabhupada said that, that's something practical. But like, you feel like that's something possible in the near future or maybe in the future?
Well, it's already going on and because it's already there in nature. We're already acting according to our natures. It just has to be organized more so that we actually have all the parts of the social body acting cooperatively. You know, I mean, people are already acting according to their natures, but if they're not acting cooperatively in devotional service, then they compete. And that nobody's happy when it's like the hand isn't competing. Like if I stub my toe, if I cut my toe and I get a big gash and it might get infected, you know, if it's bleeding, I'm not going to look at my toe and say, and the head's not going to say, oh, you're just the toe. You're like the Shudra part of the body. I'm not going to worry about you. No, because if I don't marshal all the intelligence I can bring to bear to get that, you know, to clean it, to disinfect it, to cover it, or maybe I have to go to a doctor and get it stitched or whatever, then it's not going to serve me. It's going to get infected. I'm going to become crippled. So similarly, in a spiritual society, the more we can understand what it means to be situated in our varna and situated properly in our ashram, and then work properly together, the more we'll be able to show. You say, is it possible? Well, unless and until we do that, we're not going to actually, as I said, attract the world. We're not going to be able to show the world a better way to live because we'll just be as chaotic as everybody else. We're just going to be at the mercy of the International Monetary Fund, or we're going to, you know, if there's a war or whatever. Like I said, if there was a war, did I mention this about the Amish? If there was a war tomorrow, they'd carry on. They're not dependent on, you know, they have their own society, their own little, you know, support group. So we have to learn how to really work together more. Yeah, that's part of Varnashram. There's so many aspects to Varnashram, but it has to happen. We have to be able to show the world a better way to live. And we're doing that a little bit, but we need to do it more in order for the people to be inspired to read Prabhupada's teachings and take up devotional service. Now, the thing is, you know, we're always living in little tiny pieces of time. And we're only 500 years out from Mahaprabhu. That's the beginning of the golden age. We're talking thousands of years here. You know, so we're thinking it's so slow, you know, ISKCON has been existing for 56 years now. And where is it? Where's this new society? But we're doing okay. You know, it's in terms of cosmic time, it's just, we've only been existing a few minutes, so to speak. So we just have to do all we can in the little bit of time we have. And so you're certainly doing it here. Turning your house into a Sangha place. So,
ISKCON is something Prabhupada has made it such a place where everyone is welcome
yes.
and every aspect is practical.
Mm-hmm.
Every aspect is like, no, it's potent enough.
Yeah.
The master
Yes.
has to carry on.
What's the essence of what we do in ISKCON? We vibrate holy sacred sound. You know, we chant Hare Krishna. We distribute sacred food, right? And we also share spiritual knowledge. Mahaprabhu, he was mainly doing, you know, kirtan and prasad distribution. And for the intelligent class, you know, for a small fraction of the population, he was speaking philosophy. So it's not really rocket science what we have to do, but how to reach people. That's the art, you know, how to, yes. Yeah, if they see by our own example. Yeah.
Prabhupada is very simple, very easy to understand.
Mhm.
And it's so pure, so
Mm.
there is nothing, single, any nature or any, there is nothing, there is no criticism, no criticize any philosophy, or just giving pure devotion and pure love.
Well, he does criticize when he has to. He points out nonsense when he has to. Yeah, right. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Yeah. Although sometimes he did name, he did that too, but not usually. Mm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So many Gitas.
Just by reading
Yeah. Ah, it's all about Krishna. So, well, how are we doing? I'm glad you, yeah, Krishna gave me the opportunity to tell it. I had forgotten about it because I'm always tempted to tell it. I just love the story. So, but your question beautifully was a beautiful intro. Okay. So I guess we're done. So thanks for inviting me to share the series. And okay. And now the next phase of our program. Ki Jai. Krishna Prasad.